It no, I should have waited for it. Good morning. It is 9 o'clock and it is December 24th, 2024. And we'd like to open the regular meeting for the Klickitat County Commissioners. And we'll start with roll call. That's Mr. Anderson and I are here in office. And we'll start with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic standing one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty. And I'm going to add to everyone on Zoom, it is our camera's not yours. We're waiting for a part for our system. So we do not have video again today. Thank you. So business agenda.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the business agenda as presented.
And I'll step down in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Commissioner meeting minutes.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the commissioner meeting minutes of December 17th, 2024 as presented.
And I'll step down in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. So we're to public comment. We would love to call on you in session. If you're here, please raise your hand and we'll have you come forward to the microphone. On Zoom, please raise your hand and unmute yourself and we'll go through the process and call on people. So we'll start in the room.
Is it for anything?
You cannot provide comment on the public hearing. So the public hearing is the franchise agreement.
So you're saying we can't comment on it?
Correct, because it's before the
Jeff Hunter added additional information to the packet of information about this hearing after the hearing was concluded. He got to add additional testimony. The citizens are entitled to the same rights.
And
this is America. We have First Amendment rights to say whatever we want to say. You can't dictate to us what we can and cannot talk about.
Because that's a public hearing. If the chair chooses to open that during that public hearing,
then you let the chair decide.
But you cannot provide comment on it now. It would have to be during that.
Jeff Hunter was allowed to add additional comments and testimony to the record after the citizens' testimony was concluded. Why are you allowing him to do it and not the citizens?
I'm not responding back to this.
No.
Say what? Talking in the microphone so we can hear you.
We have no response, Mr. Wagner.
I'm going to talk about the franchise agreement.
I wish you wouldn't because you've been.
My name is Greg Wagner with Cease. The franchise agreement is a contract and it is flawed, poorly written, vague, and lacks the language that protects the people of the county. The franchise agreement states that the county is to be in accordance with the Klickitat County accommodations of utility on road right-of-way policy. Mr. Hunter has admitted the county does not have this required policy. Without the policy, how can the board ensure that the county is in accordance with the policy? Mr. Hunter now claims it's a whack, but it is not referenced in the agreement. The agreement states the applicant will be billed per Klickitat County Code 2.27. That code does not exist in the Muni codes. How will Carriager be billed? This agreement does not go into effect until after 5 years. During the first unprotected 5 years, the county is financially liable should Night Road be realigned, which would require the Carriager power poles to be relocated. During that period of relocation, Carriager will not be able to sell their energy. Carriager will demand that the county reimburse them for their lost revenue, and that could be in the millions. This agreement fails to address this very real possibility, and safeguards must be placed in the agreement. This agreement should have a 180-day time frame for a decision, not 60 days. Mr. Hunter submitted 2 additional documents after the hearing concluded. These documents were not available to the people for their review and testimony, and that denies them their procedural due process. RCW 4230 requires that the people be informed and be part of the government's decision-making process. Adding documents without the people's knowledge violates the law. Due to these failures, this agreement must be rewritten and amended to protect the county and its people. As written, it fails to accomplish that requirement. Mr. Hunter stated the franchise agreement has nothing to do with
Mr.
Carriage
Wagner.
Solar and it is not needed. He is wrong.
Mr.
It is a
Wagner.
very important document. I'll be done in a minute. It is not needed. Why is Carriager demanding this decision? Yeah, you don't want to hear from the people.
No, we've heard from the people many, many times, Mr. Wagner, and I'm sorry that we don't follow processes. I agree that you have your constitutional rights to speak. But I wish you'd recognize our process and follow the process. So it actually is your opinion and your civil right, but it's not testimony, so. Thank you. Online, Roger Nichols, I think you were first hand up.
Thank you very much. I have a question about the coroner's situation. I realize that in your public, gosh, I can't talk this morning. I'm still recovering from knee surgery, so if I'm a little scattered today, blame the meds. I wanted to ask about the contract with for coroner deputy services, and I'm really kind of concerned. Do we have a coroner? I'm not sure where that stands. Is Jack going to be the coroner for the county? It says deputy coroner, so I'm a little confused. Hope you could straighten me out on that. Thank you.
And what was that name again, Mr. Nichols? I'm sorry.
Jack Tumbrell.
Okay.
It's in your consent agenda today.
Okay, thank you so much.
Don't hesitate.
Back in the room. Adrian Bradford.
Good morning. I am referring to your consent agenda item number 4 in your agenda. At the Friday morning airport board meeting, which I attended, the subject came up by the general manager of a $2,200 grant, a USEDA grant, I believe. And it was not clear to me in that amount what he was referring to, and it didn't make clear. Would you please at least give us or me a brief explanation of the need for a goal for this amendment in item number 4 and clarify what it is, just so I have my record straight. This is such an important thing to the airport and to all of us who are benefited by our huge airport, Klickitat County. I just want to be sure I have my facts, because those funds are directed towards a learning center for airport maintenance, a building to be built that would benefit a lot of students of all ages, and I believe a great advantage for the county. So I'm just looking for clarification when you have a moment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bradford. Good morning, Mr. Isaacson.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Morning. This is Rick Isaacson from Lyle. And bear with me on this. Okay. Tis the day before Christmas and all through the county. The people wondered what the heck is all of this that surrounds me. Not a good tension was stirring, not even an ounce. The deals were hung by the back door, scheming with care, as the sounds of a conscience was found to be nowhere. While commissioners hopes that the public would not care. The public is all snug in their chairs while visions of the new year dance in their heads and lure with their chloroform, trying to settle our brains for the long winter's nap. When out of the crowd rose such a clatter, we called BS on the sweetheart James Dean construction deal because, hey, this really matters. Now, speaking of the James Dean deal, you sure handed him that one. Now, I have a couple questions. He got the lowest bid on a recent contract. You'll be putting a clause in there where they cannot get a fuel override article like the last one, right? Grants did not cover that, and hundreds of thousands of dollars were paid by the taxpayers. Can't deny that one because it's in the records. Will there be penalties for going over time allotment? And will it be a hard no on extra money if they go over the budget? Now, since James Dean Construction never paid their past lease agreement costs until someone caught that, what kind of penalty will the county be placing on that? I'm thinking that 18% compound interest is the usual amount charged. And since Dean Construction got away with it for so long, why in heaven's name would you give them another contract? Now, can we see the other bids? Do they include the fuel? So would they end up being cheaper? Now, okay, it was also pointed out by a neighbor that on the agreement that wasn't paid, that James Dean Construction was not supposed to be mining 24 hours a day, which they did for 4 months over that summer. Isn't that a environmental violation? Was that reported? Just like I said to the FAA, I think I'll send that one to the environmental agency so we can find out. All right. Now, I would really hope you would not vote on this until everything has been vetted and all questions asked and answered, because sounds like you'll just be letting your neighbor's kid get a really great steal of a deal. All right, that is all I have this week. Merry Christmas to all, and to all, more sleepless, not so good nights. And I will talk to you before the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Isaacson. Back in the room. Deb.
Lord help me. Debbie Wagner with Cease. Merry Christmas to all. Due to these failures, this agreement must be written and amended to protect the county and its people. As written, it fails to accomplish that requirement. Mr. Hunter said the franchise agreement has nothing to do with Carriger Solar, and that is, it's not needed. He is wrong. It is very important. If it is not needed, why is Carriger demanding the decision? Since Mr. Hunter fails to grasp the importance of the agreement, I suggest that he be replaced with someone who does. The agreement, which is a land use document, was modified by Mr. Hunter and Mr. Cannell, but they failed to modify the really important sections of the agreement as stated previously. Mr. Cannell has admitted he is not a land use attorney, and this was confirmed when he hired outside legal counsel in 2 previous land use cases. Mr. Cannell lacks the expertise to modify the franchise agreement, proven by inability to address real problems within the franchise agreement. Until the flawed and inadequate franchise agreement is amended to protect the county and the people, the Carriger franchise agreement cannot be granted. This board's duty is to protect the safety, health, and welfare of the people. And if the board grants the Carriger franchise agreement, you will be derelict in your sworn duty. Planning Commission did a poor job in reviewing the James Dean rezone. They did not render their decision based on only the testimony given. They rendered their decision on what they thought the other people needed. Their decision is in violation of RCW 4236. The board must remand the James Dean rezone back to the Planning Commission for further review. Thank you.
Okay, online. Good morning. Delmer, I think you were up there first, Mr. Eldred.
Yeah, the franchise agreement that Carriger LLC wants benefits no one in Klickitat County. And ultimately, it will be PUD or Bonneville that's going to do the line construction. And that cost, in one way or another, will be handed right back to the taxpayer. The only thing that this franchise agreement benefits is Carriger LLC. And the commissioner's main purpose is to serve the citizens of Klickitat County to the best of their ability and not try to push through projects for special interest groups that want to use the county as a springboard for their government subsidies and tax incentives. And I do not see how the commissioners, in clear conscience, could ever consider approving a franchise agreement between Carriger LLC and Klickitat County. That's all I have.
Thank you. Back in the room.
I'll back up to
Good
this.
morning, Candy.
And I'll teach Scott after this. This is 252 pages, front and back, so if I had did it on single paper, it would be double this. This is the application for site certification for Carringer Solar Project. And this went to FSIC. And in, I think it was February 10th, 2023. This is how long this stuff has been going on, okay? Now, who's read this? I read half of it, my eyes hurt, okay? Have you guys read this? Has the owners read this? I've gone through it and it scares the heck out of me, I'll tell you what. This is the big dog, Lori. This is the big one, okay? So I think that everybody, you can get it online. Everybody should read this because there's some things in it that you won't like. That's gonna hurt the city of Goldendale. It's not just the area land around it, because when this starts north of town, it's gonna be south of town. It's gonna be all over both sides of 97. So when people come up to Goldendale, this is what they're gonna see, thousands and thousands and thousands. They're not gonna stop. The people are gonna try and sell their houses. It will be half price if they can do that. I've already gone through a town that is no longer a town. We sold our farm for half price. So I've been through this. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. And Goldendale is a beautiful town and we have a lot going for it. So anyway, I know what you're saying. What's the old lady here for? Well, I've got kids here. I've got grandkids coming and great grandkids that come to Goldendale. So I have a dog in the fight and it's a big one. Thank you.
Thank you, Candy. I'm back online. There you are. Good. Oops. Sherry's still up there. I saw you, Sherry, but you went away. Are you still wishing to speak? There you are. Good morning, Sherry Bosque.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm asking if the commissioners do not have your mics in front of your face, those mics. If they're not on, please turn them on. It's hard to hear you guys from over another mic. And so anyway, I'm looking at a document pulled from my property records. It's called a right-of-way easement. And it's file number 44991, recorded May 9th, 1949 at 10:41 a.m. Yeah, they record things. It's recorded in volume 104 in the deeds book, page 615. From Daisy Carter to PUD, District Number 1 of Klickitat County. She gave a right of way to put a electric pole on the property. And I have said the county cannot grant a contract of right of use of property you do not have a right of way easement on. You can't do it. It's fraudulent. You're frauding the people. You might want to say it's on the road and it's got a transportation easement. That is not a utilities easement. And if I'm looking at a document in my hand from my property that also eases Hewsome Road, my property also has a road easement. Why did the PUD need an easement? Right, because you need one. So if you sign this contract, this is fraud because you have no right to contract somebody else's property. So on its face, it stops there. It's fraud. You know it. You're scamming the people. You're doing contracts in bad faith with very unclean hands. And you're doing Christmas deals, just like Under Canvas was released the second time around on Christmas Day. Why was Mochi even in the office? Christmas deals. But I guess the government has a history of doing things over Christmas. Maybe that's how you tell your corporate friends it's their little Christmas present, because that's what it was for Under Canvas. So as I'm looking at this document, I want the people out there to know that our county contracting out other people's land for use from a foreign corporation cloaked in another onion of corporation is fraud. It's fraud, people. And commissioners, when you sign that, you know the people are going to come at you because you're just giving a green flag. And Jeff Hunter saying that this contract of land use with Carriager Solar LLC has nothing to do with the Carriager Solar project. Give the people a break. How stupid do you think we really are? Enough with the nonsense. Do not sign that fraudulent contract. Have some moralities, but we'll see what you do.
Thank you, Sherry. Back in the room. Hey, online, anyone else this morning? 2662.
This is Tracy and Lyle. So I've got a lot. I'm not going to talk about Carringers, but I have a lot on the docket that I'd like to talk about. So number one, the task order for the Klickitat County Dallas Fort Airport. My concerns are that backup generator. They're not putting it on a slab. They're not doing anything, and it's got a fuel system. And I'm just hoping that that doesn't drain into our the water system or the wastewater system. That was my concern about that. Number two, the coroner. I sent you an email, an email that was in the meeting agenda last week, and I mentioned that Will Harriman had stepped down. He was a paramedic. I just like to know how deaths will be, how they will be, who's going to state a person's going to be dead. If it's a paramedic, because the guy now that's in charge is an EMT. More on that later. Number four, I'd like to just mention that Foster said that they're using emergency money for FEMA money for the airport. And number four, I'd like to just mention, number six, the ARPA funds and SLFRF funds to be used for public safety payroll. They've already been paid by their disaster money, and this money could go for those that need it. A lot of the sources said that they could go for people that were jeopardized by the COVID-19 or people that didn't get paid much when they worked, essential workers for COVID-19. That money should be allotted there. Lastly, I'd like to make a comment. I did submit comments for the Carringer report. I'm not talking about Carringer, but I did send those things to you. They were based on a draft copy of the franchise agreement that I had received from the Click Networks franchise. So my questions and my comments were based on that. Nobody was able to tell me if that changed. Jeff Hunter's on vacation. I called your office. They weren't able to tell me. And then I called the PA and he said he wasn't able to give that information. So I hope that hasn't changed and those comments will be read. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the, hold on one second. I had surgery yesterday, so bear with me here. Trying to see. Okay, the Washington, okay, let me just see. Okay, the Washington GIS project that was in 2007, Klickitat County had to send in parcel information to the University of Washington. The document still shows Mike McBride as assessor. It hasn't been updated since 2019. And this is a state parcel database. I did send you this email this morning, but in it, I just like to point out the Pacific Northwest Natural Laboratory. The reason why they're using this document is for BPA renewable energy storage site selection. I'd like to say that the U.S. Department of Energy is using this document of the county parcels for the BP project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Get better.
Thank you.
Back in the room. Good morning, Mr. Smith.
It's all here today before Christmas.
Got your Christmas shirt on?
I do have something red on. It took me 5 minutes to find something red. That's hard to find nowadays. Andrew Smith, Klickitat County. Well, let's go on a happier note. Happy New Year's, happy Christmas, and hopefully everything's good. My land, just be careful on decision making. Thank goodness we've got our fine jailer in here so we can hear a nice report. Hopefully it'll be a positive one. And other than that, I'm gonna step down and let's get this thing moving on. Wow, quick and easy and simple. Have fun.
Thank you. Online again. Anyone else this morning?
Everybody else is doing their stuff.
Not seeing anyone? Anyone else in the room? Mr. Smith, usually, Mr. Thies, go ahead, and then we'll get Mr. Pepple in the back. No, you're okay, Mr.
My name is Dave Teese. I live in the Glenwood Valley. I came to talk about the franchise agreement and the Dean Quarry, but just realized that you really don't want to hear from us on the franchise, so I'm going to pass on that. But I want you to know that these people talking before you are not just talking to you, they are talking to the public. And this forum provides an opportunity for people to educate the public, and I don't feel like I'm getting to really do that today. I will be giving you my public comments, which unfortunately include the franchise comments on the same page as some of my comments on the Dean rezone. I apologize for that, but I really don't think that you care. I think that you probably already made up your mind on this. So I'll just proceed to the Dean rezone. I want to remind you that the policy number 6 of the comprehensive plan amendment states residential areas should be protected against encroachment by gravel and other mining. Commissioner Anderson has suggested expanding the Dean buffer to 200 foot for neighbors. But I would wager that if this were put to a vote of county citizens, it would be found to be totally inadequate. You are not just deciding the Dean rezone, you would also be setting a precedent for every county citizen facing a future of having industrial surface mining for a neighbor. The Klickitat County Development Assistance Brochure on rezones was changed in July of 2023. It dropped this clause. The proposal will not result in a private gain designed to favor or benefit a particular individual to the detriment of the community as a whole. I'd like to remind you that a community is smaller than a county. We're talking about small little communities like Snowden and BZ Corners and Hewsome. Just like to remind you about that. But this significant deletion occurred about the same time as the Dean rezone was submitted. You should not approve the Dean rezone and expansion. Real mitigation measures would prevent impacts by keeping surface mining well away from residents. The right to appeal, now banished, would assure those mitigation measures actually worked. This holiday season is typically used to bypass the most onerous county
Thank you,
decision.
Mr. Teese. I'm sorry.
Instead, this Christmas, why not treat the people like they really matter? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teese. Online. Mr. Rizzi.
Good morning, council. There has been a whole lot of good people that have given you their comments. And like the last person said, you probably made up your own minds already, so it doesn't really matter. And you're looking out for special interests. But I want to take this time and wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and to my Jewish friends, a Happy Hanukkah. And hopefully everybody has a wonderful Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rizzi. Mr. Pebble. Good morning.
Good morning. Mark Pepple, Dallasport. I want to thank Mr. Hunter and his engineer for coming to Dallasport and trying to work with us. It was a positive step. And last week we had our water district meeting and I brought up, because of all the naysayers, I know Dallasport has been kind of a sore spot for some people. I don't want that anymore down there. I want our reputation to be able to work with the council, the new council, and that's my goal. We'll have a new chairman next year, Bill Clark, and I'm looking forward to working with you guys as close as we can and getting the stuff done that we know we need to get done. And I think with Mr. Hunter coming down, we're off to a good start for next year. So other than that, I want to say Merry Christmas and thank you guys for taking this time.
Thank you. Online one more time. Anyone else for comment this morning? Back in the room, I'll give it one more time and move on. Good morning. Do you have public comment, Rebecca?
I feel Rebecca, though I'm not here as an employee necessarily, but as a citizen that happens to be employed. I'm used to coming up here and presenting documents and says speaking on the fly. I would like to say that I understand that the community, there's a lot of public that looks at government employees as being kind of closed off, detached, not really compassionate, and it is intimidating at times for the general public to get that connection with government employees and to know that we really do care. Whatever that, it is hard to listen to a lot of the attacks that come through on past employees, current employees. There's a lot of aggression, not passion, coming through. But then there's also a lot of people who have compassion that's coming through and coming to the issue, problem with solutions. What I would like to remind people is that all the employees that are here are your neighbors, your family members. They have neighbors, they have family members, they're landowners, they do care about their property, they care about their family property. There are people who have had property in this county for many generations, and they want to protect as best as they can. But they have to go according to the ordinances that are in place. They have to go according to the laws that are in place. There are things that some employees may not really want to see happen, but they can't put their personal hat in. They have to do their job. We walk through this door and take off our hat. There are employees that are outside of this place are embracing the happiest times of their lives, marriages, births, family, all kinds of things. There's also employees who are going through the hardest times of their lives, helping their family battle cancer, loss of loved ones, people who are going through abuse at home. There are people who are going through daycare situations. Each one of us is one of you in some way, shape, or form, with our greatest losses and our greatest joys, and worrying about paying our bills, worrying about paying our property taxes, worrying about gas prices, worrying about our electric bill. We are all one of you, but we have to take off our hat and walk through the door and put on our work hat and then come in here and listen to the attacks. What I ask is that there are a lot of things that we like to see as citizens, not employees, not happen. But there's a process, and there's a lot of things that we can't keep from happening, but how can we make it less impactful? And that is what I've learned about working with the county for the last 7 years, is that we can't always stop something, but we can do the best we can to make it less impactful. So if you come to the table, please bring that solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. And I'll ask online one more time. Seeing no one, anyone else in the room? So we will close public comment and move to any rebuttal or commissioner comment. Mr. Anderson, do you have something today? Okay. Okay. Okay, do you need just a second? I will do a quick response. Wow, my notes are a mess this morning, so I don't even know how I'm going to re-comment. For me, it's such a disappointment where our public comment has gone. It's always been respectable over the years. It's been public comment. It never digressed into commissioner arguments. It never digressed into not honoring the direction of the chair that this is public comment and that it was closed to testimony. So what was recorded today was just opinion at best. I know there's a lot of emotion over the subjects, but we all have to follow process. And we hear all the time how you expect us to follow process, but we need that partner in our public as well. We need exactly what Rebecca just stated. We need compassion and solutions. We don't need innuendos and opinions and threats. It's just really, really dented the morale and the productivity of our county. And I really look forward to both my seatmates, Mr. Irick just left, are both in the room today coming on. And we've talked about these things several times. We're able to talk before they're seated. It's probably one of our biggest concerns going forward is the working order for our county, getting back to respectability, getting back to what our jobs really are. We don't sit up here, as you've heard in the last 4 years, and bang the gavel and say we get to do what we want to do. We are quasi judicial. We're stuck within the parameters of the law. And unfortunately, there are rights on both sides of this that we have to carefully right away. Because if you throw the county into a suit on one side, or if you throw the county into the suit on the other side, you're impacting the whole county. It is public comment, and it was made to bring concerns to the commissioners for their consideration. And it's just not happening any longer. And I hope with my new seatmates, we have some solutions and we get back to a better working order. The documents are huge, and I do spend a lot of time, personal time, weekends, other time, trying to get through documents, even when I have the other work here to do. It's an unending job, and I'm so sorry, you commissioners, but welcome to this world of documents, legal, trying to figure out your best avenue. It is not an easy job, and I've worked for over 50 years, and this is the hardest job ever. It really is, and hard emotionally to stand somewhere where you really don't want to personally, but at times you have no other choice. And let me see what else was in that. And I think you need to understand, like we understand, yes, it is Zoom, and yes, it is out to the public, but this morning we had 23 people online listening. And that means probably 80% of them are our offices, because they listen in to see what's happening in the meetings so that they know what's impacting their offices. So if you take that down to maybe 5 to 10 people at most that are listening in the outside world, when we have over 23,000 people in this county. Zoom is for the recordings, basically. Reaching the larger public probably isn't doing its job. During hearings, we increase our capacity and we have more people zooming, sometimes over 100. But they know when those important days are, and that's when they chime in. So I will stop with that for now. Mr. Bradford, you did ask a question this morning, and I appreciate that for clarification. That amendment, the ask was up to 2.5 million. The award was 2.2 million. So with lesser money awarded, the project needed to be adjusted. So that's what that amendment is. And that didn't consist of anything that had to take it back to planning. That only consisted of inside the building, what will we spend less, because the college maybe needs less rooms, less amenities within that. So we were able to barter that back down by scaling the project back legally to a footprint that didn't cause it harm to cause the application to be redone, but made it fit the money. And they were willing to do that, so that was adamant, but thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and bear with me. I just want to say thank you to everyone who comes to the meetings on Christmas Eve to provide public comment. It means a lot. I understand your passion, your dedication, the amount of hours you put into research. It's hard on Christmas Eve when you hear the things that people say, as we had one of our staff, not speaking as staff, but one of our members pointing out that what you say impacts staff. It impacts morale. It impacts the nature of the county. All I've ever asked is that I want to hear your thoughts and your concerns, but say them in a respectful way. Say them while following the rules. When I tell you that you can't speak with regards to things that are in a hearing, that's because I can't take it into consideration. Mr. Nichols, the coroner situation, thank you for asking about it. We did hire a new coroner. That his name is Eric Anderson. He has years of experience and dedication to Klickitat County, working for the Sheriff's Department. He was the most qualified, and we're very happy to have him on board before he had to assume duties on January 1 so that he can spool up a new department. The item in our consent agenda with Mr. Trundle, he owns all of the funeral homes in the area, and we ask a lot of the funeral homes, and we're getting a really amazing deal on having them as deputy coroners so that they can transport and do all the things that they do. I was really impressed with what Eric had negotiated for the next year, and I'm very happy to move forward with that. If you have more questions, feel free to give me a call. And Madam Chair, I just want to make it clear. So the airport board meeting, that wasn't $2,200, Adrian, that was $2.2 million. And that is additional funding that we got because the cost to construct has gone up so significant with regards to the business park and the hangar, as we've all seen in all construction in the last few years. This was the last bit of money that we could get in order to move forward with construction. So Public Works very quickly made some changes on the scope and scale of both the building as well as the number of lots, correct, Madam Chair? As well as the number of lots that we're going to be able to open in phase 2 of the business park. By doing that, we are going out to bid. We will see what the bids are, but this is one of those projects that economic development has been working on for the last almost 8 years, and it's finally coming to fruition. I'm very excited about it. I will not speak to the Dean rezone or the franchise agreement because I'm not allowed to. Candy, yes, those 250 pages is just a piece of the overall record with regards to FSEC. We have projects come before us that might be under conditional use permit that it can be up to 250 pages because that's what it takes in order to move forward because the public wants to know everything. This has always been a concern for me because what happens is it costs money for all those 250 pages if you're a developer. And so what I've been always concerned with is that we've set the regulations so much and so great that you or I or anybody else in the community who wants to do something small, who wants to, build a small business on their land or on their property, now has to jump through all the same hoops and regulations that somebody that's a multi-billion-dollar company can come up with the funding in order to do it. But you and I, we don't have access to those kind of funds in order to do anything. And so what we've done is through regulation, we've pretty much preempted the ability for small businesses to start and to grow. Because in order to grow or to start, you now have to jump through all the hoops and regulations that cost, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And you need economics of scope and scale in order to make that pencil out, to take that kind of a risk. Because if you take that risk and spend $500,000, you don't even know if you're going to get through the other side. What small business is going to be able to afford that, to take the chances on that? And so, well, yes, that's the expectation in order to do a project, that might be something like the Carringer project that you brought up. But say you wanted to do that as a community solar project on 5 acres or 6 acres, but yet you have to be held to the same standard. There's no way you can make that pencil as a community in order to do that. And that's something that the state has to look at. That's something that the counties have to look at. And I think we're hearing a lot of that at the federal level as well. It's something that I've always been concerned with because a simple SEPA document is no longer a simple SEPA document that it used to be. It takes hiring people that, traffic studies and everything else to do anything. And it concerns me as we move forward as a county for neighbors trying to do, small projects. Andrew, can't wait to hear the Joe report either. And thank you for coming in on Christmas Eve. You said you'd do it and you did it. Mr. Peppel, I'm so glad to hear that you were looking for a little bit of a reboot with regards to the communication between the Dallasport Water District and the county. That's something I'm excited to see. We have wasted years where we could have been changing and going through the Water Conservancy Board to get the point of diversion or place of withdrawal amended, as well as getting the place of use changed so that you guys can have physical and legal access to that water. It has been years coming that it takes time to go through that process. We need to get started now. We need to have those conversations. I'm very happy to hear that there was a positive step with the engineer, Mr. Hunter, coming down, and I hope those steps continue. If you have any questions or need any help, I will always be here, even though I won't be a commissioner. And to Rebecca. Thank you. It is difficult for staff to speak in front of the board. It is difficult because you sit there and listen to the meetings and it affects you. And as much as we can try to say that it affects staff, it has a different meaning when staff actually says it. And I know you were speaking as an individual as well. And in this time of the holidays, I would hope that we can all speak a little softer to each other and show a little bit more grace towards one another and a little bit more respect for one another, because we are all neighbors. We all care about each other. Our kids go to school together. And I hope that this next year with a new board coming in, that the new board is going to, I must say, you slammed the gavel down at the end of the year. You made it almost the whole year without slamming the gavel down.
You want.
Oh, that might be true.
Yeah.
I said almost the whole year. And that's not what we want to do. We don't want to have to throw the gavel. But you also have to remember that the Board of County Commissioner meeting is actually the board's meeting. When you speak into the board, you're not supposed to be speaking like you're on top of the pulpit and you're talking to the people in the community. You're supposed to be talking to the board. And you should try to remember that, because that's how you can be effective. Don't talk about them personally. Every time someone says something like you're just helping special interest, you're giving special favors, when you start talking about people personally, Rebecca made a very good point that you have to, when we come in, we take off our own personal hats. It's not our decision. We're shepherding a process. how we personally feel, I can tell you that multiple times I've had to vote for something that I may personally disagree with, especially in administrative actions. But that's not my job to come up here and vote as I personally feel. It's my job to look at the testimony, to review the information and review the laws and make those decisions. And I've always tried to do that in a fair and transparent manner. And with that, since I have just a little bit more time, I wanted to talk about the last 4 years, if you don't mind. So when I came into office, I made some pledges. I put them on the back page of the newspaper and the things that I wanted to work on. And I always left them hanging up because it was what I wanted to do over the course of 4 years. And so some of those accomplishments, as well as some of those defeats, when I came into office, I was talking about fiscal responsibility. Our reserves, cumulative reserve, was at $13.3 million when I came into office. At the end of November, it's now up to $18.9 million. That's an increase of $5.6 million. When I came into office, we had 61 days of cash on hand, operating cash on hand for the general fund. As of November, we now have 201 days of cash on hand. You hear a lot in the public that, oh my God, you're going broke, or you guys are doing this. Well, the numbers don't lie. We're actually in a very good financial situation, cash flow wise, as well as with our cumulative reserves. We are facing a fiscal issue in the next few years. But what the fiscally responsible boards that have set up here for the last 30 years have done is left this county in the best position, I think, in any county in the state to deal with the coming fiscal crisis that all counties, cities, and the state government are dealing with. The other one I wanted to talk about is transparency. When I came into office, I wanted all meetings recorded, posted online, available to the public, and to allow for public comments like we've had. I wanted to make sure we had an e-signature policy and that our committee appointments are done through an application process rather than just commissioners picking names out of a hat or picking their friends. All of those were implemented. In economic development, we wanted to see growth at the regional airport, and that's one of the things we're doing today. We're getting really close to going out for the construction contract in order to move forward with the phase 2 of the business park. And that's just the business park side. Millions of dollars have been invested into the airport through grants and packages that went to local contractors and local businesses to do that helped our local employees. When I came in, one of my pledges was to create a committee to deal with the mental health challenges. What did we do? We went further. We actually took on behavioral health. We provided crisis services. We're providing limited outpatient treatment services. We're actually doing what we wanted to do for our neighbors and our community members that most need help. We also did that without spending any county money. 100% of behavioral health is paid for by the state. Your taxpayers are not, your tax dollars that go to the county are not covering any of that. In planning, we updated the Title 12 road standards. We strengthened the requirements for the decommissioning on large-scale industrial projects. We passed legislation to form the Bi-State Bridge Authority and raised hundreds of millions of dollars to replace the aging Hood River Bridge. Commissioner Christopher championed the truck potable water so that people who can't get access or have a hunting cabin can still get a permit to build. We survived COVID without laying anyone off at the county or requiring vaccines for any employees. Something that the state can't say and many other counties can't say. We constructed this building we're all sitting in here today, the county services building, through COVID. We did renovations at the fairgrounds, the courthouse. We've done a lot of things. For the disappointments in economic development, I wanted to see something constructed and done with the Klickitat mill site. That was one of my pledges and it hasn't got done. We did get a grant and so we are doing planning, but I wanted to see something actually get done there. I wanted to see a sustained yield harvest on the county forest trust lands so that we could actually budget year over year for income from our 20,411 acres that the county, owns, but the state manages. Didn't get it done. I spent 9 years trying to get that done, and it's an uphill push. We didn't get our comp plan started. We went through the process of trying to 2 years of trying to hire a long-range planner to get the long-term comp plan updated, and we never got any applicants for it. We now have someone on board, and we are now moving. So while it was a disappointment for most of it, we're actually making progress. I'm glad to see that. We didn't get any workforce or affordable housing on the west end of the county done. I really wanted to see a public-private partnership so that we could get some affordable housing while also getting a park. And I wanted to hopefully see something like that happen on some county-owned lands that we had available, so that it would have been a win-win for the community and the general public at large. The people in that area didn't want it, didn't get done. With that, the greatest challenge I think I've seen is the communication. It's been a long, hard 4 years. Communication amongst the board. It's really hard when you can't talk to people outside of it, and everything you do say has to be in public. It makes government really difficult to manage. It's also really difficult to have the tough conversations with department heads when everything that they say is getting recorded and can be used against them in the future. And it makes government slower and far more difficult. And that communication that occurs, those tough conversations that need to happen don't usually happen like they used to. And it's too bad. In the communication from the public, we've had the most stressful 4 years, I think, that I've ever lived through in terms of COVID and how everyone's had to handle their own personal lives. And I just hope that we're on the backside of it, and that we can always start and get back to focusing on the issue and talking about the issue, not about the person. And if we can do that, you'll have a far more positive experience dealing with your local government, and you'll have a far better experience with them being able to listen and respond to you. With that, Madam Chair, time is up.
Thank you. Okay, back to the agenda. Okay, or I guess consent agenda.
We can push that off. We have a department update from Bill if he wants to go before we're public hearing.
Would you like to go first, Bill?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. Let you go back.
Well, thanks. Good morning.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. It's been a wonderful 20 days. Still glad to be here. I have a little bit of an update, but before I begin, as part of that update, I want to tell you that I've worked in a huge correctional environment for several years, and I've seen morale issues and challenges with staff that are hard for a manager to overcome. It's the hardest thing to overcome. You can have great equipment if you have terrible staff and terrible morale. It's a challenge. We don't have that problem with Klickitat jail. Our staff here, those officers, do an amazing job with a very limited amount of resources. They take in the most challenging people of our county, and I've had the opportunity to watch them in action and see the passion that they have as individuals and as professionals. And it only makes it my belief that I'm in the right place, because with that, we're unstoppable. So I just wanted to highlight that before I get into some of the other things. The 17th, we welcomed the graduation of Officer Eldridge. He graduated from the Correctional Officer Academy. Under Sheriff Nopes and I went down to see his graduation, and he was really excited. He did very, very well. Forget where he ranked, but it was in the area that made me really proud, even though I had no ownership in that. That's all him. I have met with many stakeholders. I have a ton more to meet. Oftentimes just finding out where they're at, and getting time to go and meet with them The holiday season's kind of been a little bit of a damper. I'm hoping after that, that I can get in there. So if I haven't met with you yet and you're wondering when's he gonna come see me, I'm coming. Equipment needs for officers, mostly protective equipment, has been hard to source, meaning that companies don't have either the equipment on hand, or they can't get to it because they can't invoice us until after we receive the equipment, which might be the end of January. And so we're working on some on how to get that done. The auditor's office has been very helpful. We've merged a lot of our contract stuff from the sheriff's office to us. That was a barrier. They say, well, you don't have a contract, or we have to do a credit report, which limits my ability to get simple things like patches. And so working through some of those obstacles, I think we're on the right track for that. And so needed equipment has been ordered. Probably the most concerning thing that's happened is our transportation vehicle. We call her Nellie. Nellie's a multi-person transport vehicle that we use to haul people, multiple people from here to West District Court. It's helpful for us because we can have a vehicle that holds multiple people and not have a ton of staff and resources to do it. Nellie's been had challenges in the past with the AC unit. If you think of Nellie as two parts, the chassis and then the mounting system, the mounting system, the compartment has the AC is not worked in it, so they're not able to use it in the summertime. But the other day, last week, the chassis experienced an electrical problem that lit fire inside. And so we're looking at options of what it would cost to replace a repair Nellie, or have to replace Nellie with a like item, or an item that will do the job more efficiently and cost us less money. And so those numbers are being sought, and will come later with that. West District Court's been gracious, Judge Baker's been gracious enough to allow us to do video hearings and stuff when possible, and the staff have been stepping up to take out those transports. Bear in mind, when we take transports out during the day, that leaves us low in the jail that afternoon. And so together we've been keeping our jail staffing numbers up and getting those transports done. I did have an opportunity to meet with our medical provider and assess our access to care, medical kites, and medication distribution. Because the jail numbers have fortunately been low, that's a good number, that the jail numbers are low, I haven't been able to really have a broad perspective of what that looks like. But I will be meeting with other stakeholders later this year and or at the beginning of next year to discuss what that will look like and how we can improve on that. Hand in hand with medical care comes programming and getting out of their cell, having a distraction from the effects of incarceration. And so at my level already, we're working on programming, access to programming. We do look at bringing in some physical activity things so they can get out and actually exercise, and have something that's there for them to keep their mind and their body healthy while they're with us. And so we're looking at those options. And finally, as you know, we have the ability to hire 2 vacancies for correctional officers. We've contracted with PST, which is a public safety testing, which will streamline our applicant process and keep it all in one place. And so managers can track where people are at and get those the most qualified people in the door and to training as soon as possible. And that summarizes the 20 days.
A lot in 20 days.
All right.
And thank you for your care and concern for the employees.
Yeah, absolutely. They've earned it.
No questions. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Moving back up, what will do consent agenda?
No,
Okay.
we've got a public hearing that's supposed to start at 10.
Okay. Got it. So we'll do a continuation of the franchise agreement between Klickitat County and Carringer Solar LLC, noting that public comment was closed, oral public comment, but written was left open, I believe, until yesterday. And I think we received quite a few, so it's been logged into the record.
Yes, yeah, and I've had a chance to review all of our written comments. You do have the choice if you'd like. to reopen it. If you feel that it's necessary to make your decision. And I believe, is Director Hunter online?
Yes, I am.
Jeff, would you like to give it came up during public comment, would you like to give an overview of the documents that you included in the board packet? And any staff overview?
All we included was the stuff that we were asked to include, which were the pictures and what else was it? Let me think. Excuse me, I'm not on top of it this morning, but yeah, we had the pictures, the affidavits of the placement, and the map of the right-of-way. Again, we were asked to include that. That's why we included it. Other than that, there is a little discrepancy. I didn't say that I've misquoted, which is typical, but I didn't say that it doesn't matter. I said they are not associated with each other. The Carriager can go without the franchise. The franchise is a standalone agreement that protects the county people. But that's all I have right now.
Okay. Documents. Got two big things over the same time.
Is it in a?
I don't think so. You need to decide if you want to put it up for public comment, if the answer is no.
Right.
So just so everybody knows online and in the room, with something happened and they came in and tried to fix the cameras. But you see that green light up there on the roof? Everything you guys say in the room, everyone online can hear clear as day because that has like 6 mics in it and it picks it up really clearly. So if anybody's whispering in the back, you guys probably can't hear us because it's picking it up and it's also presenting it through the information and it's going online. So if you're in the room, just know that everything you say is being recorded.
Right. And now,
So you got it.
Yeah. So we found it. So we just need to declare the public hearing open for granting of a franchise agreement between Klickitat County and Carriager Solar LLC. The hearing is closed from taking any further public testimony. And are there further comments from any of the commissioners?
Do you
Or discussion?
discussion? That's what I was going to say. I don't have any more questions for the public. I wanted to thank everyone who provided public testimony and also who reviewed the documents that Director Hunter provided and continued to provide written comments. I received your written comments, Mr. Wagner. So thank you very much for those as well. I also had a chance to have a short conversation with Director Hunter on the easements so that I could better understand that. And it seems to me from everything I've been able to review that the easements are in place, that follows the established easements as well as easements from all the way back to almost before the county was a county. And I reviewed the photos as well as timestamps that showed that everything was posted on time. And that the signatures were all done. It came up that we signed the document on the 3rd, which is it was required to be posted on the 2nd. I made sure that everything was posted on the 2nd, and I would just mention that we agreed to the postings in a previous meeting. And so we actually did decide that that's when we wanted it to happen. With that,
Sure. So we do our due diligence and the paperwork, the mountains of paperwork. Like Mr. Anderson, I myself went on a quest in regards to right-of-ways, easements, and all the legalities that belong with those, searching out answers to testimony that was sent in or talked to about the public, and their concerns, and trying to prove which way or not things stand. I'm confident in everything I found. I've even reached out to FSEC themselves and talked to them, and also sought out legal counsel. So it wasn't just a quick decision, it was a lot of work to find everything we needed to find for this agreement. I have no more testimony. I think I'll leave it at that. No more comment or discussion. I have no questions. Board, I think we've done our due diligence.
the only other thing I can say to the public is, Candy, thank you for bringing forward your document on the FSEC portion. What I always try to remind people, and this happened during when FSEC came to town the first time, and it's, we want the public to provide testimony on things that they can have an impact on. And people think that you can stop one thing and then it stops the whole project. And that's just not how governmental processes work. It is going through the process at the state, and it's easy to come to a meeting of the Board of County Commissioners and, you know, give your piece and say, this is what we want you to take forward. And we take that very, very much to heart. We also want you to do your part when it comes to the things that the FSEC level. But this is a quasi judicial decision. This is an administrative decision. And so there's a lot of stuff that, you know, people say that doesn't have bearing on our decision with what's in front of us. And a lot of that comes down to how the system is designed to work. But I did hear everything you had to say. And with that, Madam Chair, I would make a motion. I would make a motion to have staff draft documents for our signature next week, approving the franchise agreement between Klickitat County and Carriger Solar. I would also, with that motion, like to ensure that the Public Works Department sends a letter to FSEC, as we discussed last week, stating that this is in no way in support of the project itself. This is just the administrative process. And I would also like to add to the record that I would not like to see any permits issued to Carriger Solar for the construction within that right of way until permits are secured through the FSEC process, if it is ever secured through the process.
And I'll step down in second for discussion. That is exactly what I was going to ask my seatmates, that it would be approved with conditions, and those are the conditions I was going to ask for. I have the surety from staff and also from FSEC that that's how it handled anyhow, but I wanted on the record that that is what the commissioners asked. Second your motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Should have closed it the actual hearing and then.
Where would you like to go now?
Next up, Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda with 9 items.
And I'll step down in second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the accounts payable warrants in the amount of $231,522.64. And the pay, and that's it, no payroll benefit.
And I'll step down in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Bills are paid. Okay, and we've done our jail administrator update. So we have 15 minutes prior to our public meeting. Do you want to give them time for that one?
So miscellaneous reports.
Sure.
Trying to bring up.
Mr. Van Cleve would like a few minutes. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. 2 things for you today. One, seeking verbal approval. We have a public health to post the clerical admin assistant 3 position that is becoming vacant or is vacant. So it's budgeted.
Is that in Goldendale or Whitehaven?
Goldendale.
Yes.
The second one is recently, let me back up. As you know, we've been working on post closure for Horse Thief landfill. And we're close to bringing you a contract with a firm that's going to help us in that last step that we need to take to close that old landfill. We recently learned of a competitive process through Solid Waste Management Grants Program offered by Rural Development Agency, which is part of the USDA. And the deadline, unfortunately, is New Year's Eve, and Mackenzie and I are working on that now, and there's no match required. It's a very competitive process, but we'd like to be able to submit for it and hopefully offset some of the cost of this last step in the process. So I apologize for the short notice. It was something that came across our desk, and we scanned it 2 or 3 times, and we think that we would be competitive. And again, there's no match or no, if awarded, it would just offset the cost of the county to do this process. So I want to make sure there's no concerns with us submitting for the grant.
I have no concerns with submitting for the grant. Thank you, Mayor.
Again, I apologize for the short term, but
Seems like it happens with the grants, we find out about it late.
yeah, I just hate not to at least try. It'll offset
Yeah.
some of the cost.
It's always good.
Thank you.
Have any miscellaneous reports?
Yes, Madam Chair. I got an email that the Columbia Land Trust was successful in their Mount Adams Forest Phase 3. And so what this is for the public, Columbia Land Trust has been applying for federal funds to preserve the working lands that were acquired from the SDS sale. They have been focused on the lands that, not the land, whatever their name is, the land trust funds,
Land conservation.
I'm trying to think of the actual name of it. So this is the Green Diamond ground, the private ground that they received. They were awarded phase 2 and phase 1 that covered 6,378 acres in phase 1. Then phase 2 covered 13,850 acres. And the most recent It is a $36 million grant that covers phase 3 that protects 29,778 acres productive timber ground that brings the total up to 48,000 acres. So all that land that is transferred into Green Diamond has now been conserved from future development to keep that land as a working forest lands. So when we start talking in the future about updating the comprehensive plan and zoning, massive swaths of western Klickitat County are now forever going to remain as productive timberland and cannot be developed. And that is a huge change in the landscape of Klickitat County. And then the other portions, it's also in Skamania County, not just Klickitat County. And I believe that the conservation fund, that's it. They are working to, they are actively managing, but they're also turning a bunch of their properties over to other conservation-minded organizations and agencies, whether it be the Forest Service, DNR, Columbia Land Trust, the tribe. And so they have active, like a 10-year, in essence, plan on moving about a lot of those acres. And when those get transferred over, what you'll see is pretty much all of the lands that SDS did not keep in the future will likely be protected into perpetuity. So our large timberlands won't be subdivided on the west end of Klickitat County, as well as the central land up to the Klickitat. I don't think they own anything east of the Klickitat, but that's a big announcement that just came out. So I wanted to make everyone aware of that. And just for the record, the BOCC has put in letters of support on all 3 of those conservation easement grants.
The one with Columbia Land Trust, is it mainly the upper Klickitat area?
The which one? With regards to this?
Yeah, to conservation. We had signed some things to help them with conservation on the upper Klickitat.
So we've also provided letters of support for the land trust for their acquisition, and I think that's Klickitat Oaks projects, and so that is the other side. So when SDS split, Green Diamond got the really productive grounds, and then the conservation fund got the grounds next to the streams and the rivers and the lower site class index ground for the most part. And so we've also written letters of support, and I believe they've acquired some of that property and found grant dollars to acquire some of those properties as well. And they are actively managing it. The last meeting I had with their people.
Well, good to hear on the timber. It's had one small update, and it was last week. We did do the Lodging Tax Advisory Board, which allows smaller entities for tourism to come in and ask for grants from the Lodging Tax Fund. And we were able to again support the Bickleton Carousel Museum and the Bickleton Rodeo Community Days. I think what else was in that packet. Also, our chambers of commerce really rely on that funding to help fund their work every year to help us with tourism coming into our county. That was an interesting.
And that'll come before the board for adoption early next year. Yes. And was the total amount given 135,000?
Yeah, it was actually reduced just a little bit to, I think, 132,000.
Okay.
The divide between them, but they sit at the table and some give up some and some get more, and they figured it out, and we were able to allot the money.
I did have a conversation with the White Salmon Parks District on the pool project.
Okay.
You know, we got some emails,
Yes, I saw.
and I can just update that they had 2 vacancies. They were able to fill 1, and they didn't know that they were supposed to let the auditor know that they'd filled it. They now I got them, hopefully they've gotten in touch with the auditor. They have 1 more vacancy that they're actively trying to fill, and I said, well, if you guys are trying to fill it and if you've already got it, we don't need to take over that process if you're already there, because we'd have to go through our entire process. That we need to advertise everything. So, and they think that they'll be able to get that filled very shortly. So I just want to give that update. And they did get I think a don't quote me, $900,000 grant. So I think they're around 3.5, 3.6 million so far. And they've got, I think, 2 others that they're waiting for to hear about, whether or not they'll get. So there's possibility of moving forward. And then I asked the tough question, when was the last time you updated your costs?
Yeah.
Because costs have came up so much, and so.
I was gonna ask what their total was and then say what's happened to it.
Right.
It's been in a long, long time.
They have almost $1 million just from the levy saved up that they haven't spent, so they have those dollars to use, either for bonds or to back the bonds, cash on hand, so that's good. They've got hopefully a path forward, but we all know how long it takes. I mean, we've been working on the phase 2 of the business park for so long, the price doubled.
Yeah.
And the pool is not in the situation where you can just, cut half of it off or not build half the lots, or, it's kind of what it is.
Yeah, it's quite the plan that they have. It's pretty impressive for what they're gonna use it for the kids. Yeah.
Do you have any updates from the airport board meeting on Friday?
No, I do not. I actually just Zoomed. I had other things I was doing, and they had just fairly standard meeting on Friday just to update everybody. So it wasn't much new. Airport's doing well. Being able to finally move forward with some projects. The Columbia Gorge hangar for the college is moving forward, which is great. That's been a long time coming.
When we get signed agreement from the college, like they actually are like, yes, we're okay with this size building. This is what we're willing to accept. We wanted the Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
We're actually willing to accept this.
As far as a signed agreement, I have not asked that question yet, but verbally, I've heard yes, and they were able to readjust what they needed in that building. So that cut down an inside office space and some different things to cut costs. And they were happy with that. They were willing to help readjust that so that we could meet the amounts.
Are they gonna take the whole hangar or half?
A little more than half.
Okay, so there'll still be some that they can resell. And what about the agreement on the lease value? Has that been finalized?
I've only heard it verbally.
Okay.
I have not seen the paper.
But it looks good.
It looks good.
Great.
Yeah.
That's what I
More
want.
than hit our amount that we needed. Yeah.
Perfect.
More than. So that was good.
Good.
Coming back to the airport for that. It'll fulfill our obligations to that debt and also get the airport.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we can still lease out the other portion of the hangar, stuff.
Yeah.
Great.
Plus it's gonna.
Hopefully they'll want it.
I think the reduction in land too, in the lots is also gonna help the airport for something that they were hoping to do. Different configurations now at the airport, because when they planned the business park, it was so many years ago, they didn't take into consideration what our airport would be and what it's becoming. And so there were some properties adjacent to the runways that actually the airport needs to have. Yeah. So we're kind of working within the scope of what we can work without adjusting the 5-year plan right now. To give us still some economic development, but yet let the airport have its growth potential too.
Where are you at on the 5-year plan update process?
I saw that in his 2025, where he's going in 2025 is to start that plan. And he needs to, because if we're going to talk about what the airport looked like when we developed the business park versus what do we really need today, we've got to have a plan for the FAA to buy. So he'll get through that plan. The manager of the airport will have to get through that plan. I don't know if it'll be in 1 year that he can accomplish that, or if it's going to be.
It depends if it's an update versus the rebuild of them. That's a big difference.
Hopefully it's just.
All right. Well, we took up the time.
So it's 10:30 and we will do the continuation of the public meeting for the James Dean Construction Aggregate Resource Overlay.
Hey, why you don't just sit there?
Would you like me to sit there?
It's fine now. It's just,
You know, I think I'm used to it because of when there's public testimony, sometimes I have to have my presentation open for a scheduled planning commission, so I think it's habit. Like, I can sure sit up here if you prefer.
oh, yeah. That's a public meeting, a public hearing.
All right, a continuation of your public meeting regarding the James Dean proposal to expand the aggregate overlay. Last meeting, you discussed, you had some questions for the PA. The only report that I have back to you is we received a response that the 200-foot overlay is consistent with county opinion that it applies to excavation activities, first of all, and second, that it is a 200-foot setback from any zone that does not have the aggregate overlay on it. So even though resource lands is the underlying zone of the James Dean property, and there's adjacent resource lands, that 200-foot setback still applies because it's not aggregate resource overlay. The aggregate resource is the zone where it talks about that 200-foot setback. It's not referred to in the resource land zone. And I've got, if you'd like me to pull up the slides from last time, including the ones that show a rough estimate of the 200-foot setback, we can.
Sure.
Got that available if you want it.
And to clarify, this is an operational setback as it's written in the zone.
Right, in the operating standards.
Yeah, it's in the operating standard. So in essence, it doesn't say setback or buffer or anything, but it just says 200 feet.
Right, must be no excavation within 200 feet of the border of another zone.
And that's for the permitted outright uses according to the zone.
Yes. And that's it specifically says excavation and sedimentation ponds, and then another one has a 200-foot setback for the various equipment that's used for crushing. It's a different item in the same standards. Let's go straight to, in case, well, we'll start with this one, just for clarity. A little bit of lag. So. We can go back to any of these if you'd like to. I was informed that I was hard to hear last time, so I apologize to the public. I'll try to make sure I speak slowly and into the microphone. I believe this is the one that depicts roughly the 200-foot setback if applied.
I've got an estimate of 3.76 acres, and that's granted a rough estimate, just so that we are putting it to scale for clarity.
3 points in the buffer zone.
No. Sorry, nobody can see, but this section is the new area with adding this area. This is the new area that would be able to be permit outright used for excavation. This area was originally with the 2005 amendment, this was already included in permitted outright use. Because then you've got your 200-foot buffer around the zone, but this is the new area. So that in essence is the only area that we're talking about.
And for those online, Commissioner Anderson was referring to the two sections outlined in red, with the northern section being the portion that would be added as usable for the site within the 200-foot setback area. So the continued question is, as the board, you have the option of accepting the planning commission recommendation and either approving it based on that recommendation or denying it without any additional information, reversing going against the recommendation basically, in which case you of course need to make findings supporting that. The alternate is to hold your own public hearing. So that is still the really only question on the table, broad question.
I have no questions, Scott. Gone over and over and over everything. So, and you did hear back from legal?
Yes, legal confirmed those two positions I said, one that it does apply to excavation, and two that it applies to any set or distance from any zone that's not the aggregate resource overlay.
Yeah. Discussions?
Having reviewed the information that the planning commission put together, I wish that they would have caught the 200-foot that comes before us. But again, that is not a thing that is to be negotiated in a zoning ordinance. That is just the operational standard that's in it. If you want to operate outside that 200 feet or inside the 200 feet area, you would have to go through and get a conditional use permit, use the underlying zoning. But this is only about changing the actual zoning designation. And the planning commission was looking at it, I believe, with an 80-foot buffer and a 50-foot buffer.
Correct. And I can pull that slide up if you'd like to see what they had looked at.
Sure. There you go. And so with that, the planning commission's findings, even if it had been this, they were in favor of the zone change. Being that in reality, due to the operational standards, it is actually a greater setback than this. I don't foresee the need that we would need to, from my perspective, hold our own hearing, because this is more restrictive, not less restrictive. And I don't see a reason to, from my perspective, not summarily adopt the findings that the planning commission came up with.
Well, and for us, administratively, I don't think there's anything else that we've missed that's allowed. You know, the 200-foot setback is there. And I haven't found anything else in those documents.
And I will just say that I've read all the emails that we've received on this. Even though it's not a public hearing, I take it all into consideration. I give a lot of weight to the planning commission and their discussions and deliberations and all of the testimony that was provided to them. And when I look at the comprehensive plan and their findings with regards to the comprehensive plan, um, the mineral resources that we do have, I just have to remind everybody, this is as close as you can get to the Columbia Gorge National Scenic Area without being in it. And I would just say that one of the issues that they dealt with in the past is we used to have a lot more rock pits in Klickitat County. We had a lot more mining operations that you could, because when it comes down to it, it comes down to the cost of transport. And this one has been a valuable pit for the county itself. We bought a lot of rock out of this pit, as well as the community, not only of Houston, BZ, but also in White Salmon, and everywhere in between. You draw circles around these pits, and that's, where you go to get your rock. And this pit, I would agree with the, I would definitely agree with the findings of the planning commission.
And it was an interesting journey for me to go back through the comp plan. I wasn't aware of the aggregate overlay. And so to learn about how that functions and why they did it to preserve those resources, and then the maps and everything associated with it, they did their due diligence of where can we get aggregate in our county in the future. And I even heard about the importance of this pit. It is a fairly important pit for the entire county because of what it can produce or has produced. So preservation and use is important as we have dwindling resources, just like we see with the timber. So it was interesting for me to go back through the comp plan with that. And I look forward to the new comp plan. What are we going to do now? Where are we with resources and what will we do? That'll be quite the journey to put that set in stone again and preserve our future. So do you have anything else?
No, Madam Chair. Mr. Schmidt.
No.
One point of clarification from staff. One of the findings in there refers back to this 80-foot buffer. Staff interpretation, could we propose something that has a clarification on that?
Well, the findings from the planning commission, I don't know if I've listed all these. Have that, you have that. Meant to grab it. On specific finding. It's finding 1D, policy 4.3. The applicant proposed buffers that were deemed to be adequate to minimize impacts such as noise and dust to adjacent users. My proposal, if you're looking for one, would be to amend that to say the buffers within something about with the buffers within the operating standards of the area overlay zone are deemed to be adequate to minimize impacts such as noise and dust to adjacent users. And even reference the 200-foot setback, just so it's very clear that that is your decision. And the county's understanding of that road reference. I think you'd initially proposed to remove it.
Yeah, that's what I was originally.
So that's an option. For clarity, I would suggest changing it just so that it's known that that's the county standard, that it's 200 feet. But either way, I think you would be acceptable.
How do you feel? What do you feel? Just removing it at all, or trying to make reference?
Because there was, I would make reference. To keep it clear in the future. We don't have to go back and look.
Being that the planning commission did not make that finding themselves, I don't think it's appropriate for us to amend it. I think because it is the operating standard that's allowed, the only thing would be is to delete that because it's not applicable.
What you're saying, okay. And that's a good point, because if you are to change something on the recommendation of the planning commission, then that it is what would trigger a public hearing. This isn't changing. If you're just eliminating it, it's just simply going back to what the code actually says. So I see your point.
Yeah, because their recommendation was not consistent with the code on that one point.
Understand. Yeah.
And you said that's 1D.
It's in finding 1D, policy 4.3.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I understand. Since it's a policy.
And it does not change the operational standard.
No.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to direct staff to amend the findings, eliminating 1D policy 4.3 from the planning commission decision and adopting the mitigation requirements from the SEPA document and approving the James Dean rezone to aggregate resource.
Then I'll step down in second. Any discussion?
I would just say that when you look at the majority of the public comments that came in and concerns from the public, I think that the majority of the mitigation measures address those comments. I think the 200-foot setback furthers those comments and concerns to alleviate those. And everything else, I believe that the mitigation measures take care of. And I'm not saying that this is just for it to be a permitted outright use. If the James Dean wants to work outside of these permitted outright uses, he can still go through the underlying zoning designation, which is resource lands, which allows for the conditional use permit to amend this conditional use permit and go through the public process to do that. So I feel that this is absolutely the appropriate decision for the board.
And I have to agree with the public comment. I think it does mitigate, I think it gives us middle ground. Between the applicant and the public. And protections as much as administrative we can get. And improve. I don't see anything else. That we
So
can address.
we'll just have it for signature next week.
Yeah, I believe it's in an ordinance. I'll have to look
As an
at it.
ordinance.
When
And the
does that need to
zoning
get
map
to you? Is it
was-
Thursday? Or does it need to get to you today? For the packet? Not today?
Thursdays.
Thank you.
And then we can just put that on the consent agenda for next week. Okay. Need to vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those are signed. I don't know. We have no executive session, any new business, unfinished business,
At some point.
not for me. Simple.
I think I got one for it done. It's Christmas Eve, so. Chair, I would make a motion to adjourn the regular meeting, noting that we do not have anything. Our next meeting will be at 9 AM on December 31st.
Motion and a second, or I'll step down in a second. Motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you, Leon. See you.